Good day, Jeff Johnson, Chief Innovation Officer at Purpose Legal, here today with Jim Sullivan, CEO and founder of eDiscovery AI. We talked literally 2 or 3 weeks ago about early case intelligence, one of eDiscovery AI's analysis types, and you told us at the time, Jim, that there was going to be a new feature, but we couldn't talk about it quite yet, so we're ramping up today to just cover CaseBot. Tell us a little bit about CaseBot.
Yeah, so we're really excited to announce here basically our release of our chatbot tool we call CaseBot. It's going to be a tool that's going to allow you to use natural language to just ask questions about your data set, learn facts, generate timelines, learn about people, and just get more insights out of your data. And I think this one's kind of special because most of our tools before have run your data set and it compiles insights for you, and this allows you to kind of drive that conversation. It allows you to pick what questions to ask. It allows you to kind of go through, questions that you might not initially have thought of that develop as you start asking those questions and start learning more, and it allows you to have a lot more control and getting that information, again, just getting you as much information about your case and your data as fast as you possibly can.
Fantastic. So at Purpose, we've been introducing AI tools into our workflows for some time now. And one of the things we find is as we introduce those tools, we have renewed focus on the types of things we should do to validate and make sure that our processes are achieving the results that we want them to. So as we move to using AI in an ECA or an ECI step in the process, what do you see as the types of things we should do in that vein to make sure that we're getting the kind of results we want to get?
Right, and people always ask, how are we going to validate AI and how are we going to use AI in review and how, what does that process look like? And my opinion is that this is no different than what we've been doing for the last 10 years now. I forget what day it is today, but where with predictive coding, with TAR, we've developed a number of protocols where we're going to validate the results of essentially computer predictions. And that's really no different here. The computer is making predictions or classifications on documents, and we need to validate them. And I think that all of the same methods that we've used that have been approved by the course that we've done, those all should still be in play. All of the things, illusion testing, sampling, calculating recall and precision using a control set, it's really no different from a fundamental standpoint. And I do like in De Silva Moore, it mentions that, the tool you're using isn't really relevant. It's the validation process that you're using. And I feel like there's really no difference. We are using machines to predict classifications on documents. The only difference is way better.
Absolutely. So circling back a little bit to CaseBot functionality, thanks for your answer on that, by the way. The last time we talked, we were covering case elements. Yep. And the advantage of learning about key documents, key individuals, key dates earlier in the process than we might used to have done. And this adds another layer to that with CaseBot and the ability to very early in the process ask AI conversational, natural language questions about your documents. So just thinking about the types of things that we could get with case elements, right. Key dates, key people, key documents over the broader population. Is there any sort of integration that you're seeing as we move forward with CaseBot around getting new lists of key dates, key people, and key documents that are focused on the questions and answers that we get from CaseBot?
Right, and that's, I think, CaseBot feels like kind of that next evolution. You have a data set, you load it in, you identify, what the documents are talking about, what issues there are, how many docs are relevant, non-relevant, and then, now with case elements, generate a timeline about that, identify the important people, get the key documents, and the question is, what's next? What are you going to do next when you're looking at that case? And I think the answer that we came up with is, you want to now be able to kind of dive in on targeted areas. I want to learn more. Okay, so you said this person's important, and you gave me some information about that person. It's going to bring up more questions. It's like, oh, well, now that I know that this person's involved, this is what they're doing, I'm going to want to learn something else about that person. And now we have the ability to kind of go in any direction you want to be able to develop that, develop the facts of your case, to learn about what's going on. Even generate timelines about things where our case elements tool will generate a timeline of events that happen in your case, but it's going to be a general timeline. It's going to be about this is what happened in your case from start to finish. You might be focused on a sub-issue or a subtopic, and I just want to know the timeline events that relate around this one side story. And now it just allows you to, all those questions, when I'm looking at a case, I'm seeing, first questions always just come up in my head. It's like, when was this contract signed? Who was involved with this? Who was the head of this? Who was responsible on, the opposing party for supporting this product? Those types of questions just come up in every case. Who was involved? When were they involved? How were they involved? And now you can just fire off questions about just literally any topic and learn about any piece of data that you could have in your data set.
Very cool. So allow me to crowdsource my interview a little bit here, but I'm going to do that through you. I know you've had a chance to talk to a lot of people about CaseBot today. So what are the questions you've heard that you appreciated that I didn't ask you?
A lot of them will come around, how it works, the technology-wise, where some of the limitations, and some of, does it work in different languages? How does it handle different types of data sets? And, I think that it's a really, I feel like of every tool we've made, this one feels like the newest for our audience. Timelines, you know how timelines work. Yeah. Every lawyer knows how a timeline works, but this is a different type of tool, and I do think that it's going to require a level of knowledge and understanding about something that not many people understand right now. RAG technology has been around for a while, but I just don't think it's something that a lot of people encounter. Yeah. And just some of the things that go around with it. And I think one of the things that's just more important from a legal standpoint is that how do you validate what you don't know? When I ask a question and it gives me an affirmative answer and it cites that answer and I say I can verify this for myself. And this, we talk about verification, validation with ECI, but there is validation with all AI tools. And with CaseBot, it's just luckily a lot simpler, where we provide a citation and you confirm that citation and that document matches what the claim being made was. But how do you validate when that chatbot says there's no information that represents that? I say, was anyone involved in this? And it says, we can't find anyone. There's no answer. It essentially leaves, it's a no. And I think the reality that I think a lot of people have to understand is that, we're not able to validate a negative with a chatbot type of tool. At least not yet. I'm sure that we'll come up with some creative ways, but that's just one of those pieces that I don't think it's a big deal. I think it's like, you can prove facts affirmatively, and if it says no, this doesn't exist, there's a pretty decent chance it doesn't exist, but that's not, you can't go to a court with it. There's a pretty decent chance, right? And that's where, we're at a point where you have to prove this. And proving that negative, I think, is gonna it's one of those tricky things that people learn how to handle and understand, but just not common knowledge, because who's using this type of tool in the daily life right now?
It's one of we like to say at Purpose, combining AI with human intelligence, and the AI may not tell us that doesn't exist. We have to know how to deal with that response effectively without 100% trusting it.
Right. And CaseBot really takes advantage of the human intelligence. It doesn't come up with its own questions. You have to. This is a tool where a person who's involved with a case is going to have to go down a path, asking questions, trying to find information. It's all human driven. I think one of the things we were proud about with ECI is that it's really you tell us what your case is about, and it takes it from there. It gives all of the information, it generates all these timelines, it does all of this stuff without having a lot of input. In case complete opposite. It does nothing until you decide what it's going to do. And I think that changes things a little bit, but as we get to, there's going to be a point where we can provide you all the background information, but now things are going to start to get really specific that relate to your case in a way that might take a turn that you might not have predicted, or you might not have known about, or there's something that happened or a person involved that you weren't aware of, that now we allow you to kind of go and choose your own path forward.
Very cool. So allow me to get into the weeds just a little bit. You mentioned earlier in the design of a tool like CaseBot, most of these tools are some sort of RAG technology or retrieval-augmented generation, where there's a method for querying the data set and then getting back key documents to generate the answer from. I know you've done some interesting things at eDiscovery AI to develop your secret sauce, if you will, for how you do RAG interaction. Tell us a little bit about how your process evolved, how you tested it,
Right.
No need to expose secrets.
Well,
but how you landed on the secret. That
right,
you
and
used.
that's it is interesting because we talk about reg and different strategies, but there's a lot of different ways to do it, and that was one place that I personally was struggling because some of the early implementations I didn't see as being effective. A lot of people have called attention to the fact that I absolutely said that chatbots were not at a place where they could be. The technology wasn't quite there yet, and the reality is there's just a lot of ways to do that retrieval step, and a lot of them aren't that great. And we've seen different approaches, and we've seen a lot of traditional methods, and testing all of those and coming up with really, which one works best for this use case, for answering questions about large data sets in the legal industry, is just something that we have to test, evaluate, compare different methods, and come up with, essentially the best outcome possible.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of different options, and we've seen, some of the things I'll just say early on where, a lot of concept clustering tools where it's, a concept search, and then, taking the results of that concept search and having an AI analysis answer the question. And I just felt like that wasn't very effective in what we were testing. So it was a lot of trial and error, a lot of testing different methods, and it was mostly based around that retrieval step. Frankly, the analysis step is really, really good, and it's been good for a while. But that retrieval step is definitely that's where the challenge comes into play.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing, and as we've seen products come into the market, building a bot has always been a really easy thing to do, and some of the earliest tools were bots.
Right.
But the bot is only as effective as the answer, the data that it has to work with, and that's where the RAG comes in.
Right.
And I appreciate the fact that doing a bot right is a lot more difficult than just building a bot. So.
Right, and what I always said is, a lot of people are using, a concept search, and I always said, well, so if I have a question and I can do a concept search and I can retrieve the top 10 results and then I can read those results and answer that question, we would have just been doing that 15 years ago. Right? Yeah. I can read through 10 documents. I don't need an AI to do that for me if I can get an answer I want. But those of us that are familiar with how concept searching works, a lot of times it's not really high quality documents is what's coming up, and that I've just seen that method isn't effective. Yeah. But that's pretty much what you're doing. You're running a search, you're taking the results, and then you're looking at them with an AI tool instead of a person and generating that output. But the search matters.
So Jim, what are your thoughts around how a service provider like Purpose Legal can use early case insights, case elements, CaseBot, all of these technologies to help our clients do things that they couldn't do before?
Right, and I think a lot of it just comes down to you guys have a lot of expertise in this space around how to use these types of tools, and these are all very, very new. ECI has been out for less than a year now, and you still have to generate case background. You still have some human input, and with CaseBot, as we discussed, there's some things you need to know about how to use it effectively. And you guys have, kind of a front seat to understand how these tools work and get a lot more experience working with them. When I was at a service provider, I felt like it was kind of a cheat code because I could support, 20 projects at the same time, where I think a lot of people at law firms or corporations are never going to see that kind of volume. And so you guys get to see and experience all of the different things that happen and understand better than anyone ever really could with such high volumes. That's just going to really allow you to empower your clients to have more tools at their disposal that provide better insights, more information, and just help them more than anything. Ultimately, it's not much different than any other tool. It's better. People are probably less experienced at it than a lot of tools, and it's a good opportunity for, your team and really just anyone who's interested in diving in. It sort of gets to a point where the playing field is level. Right now, not a lot of people understand a lot of these tools, and the people that are really engaged in it and learning about it are going to have a really, really good experience and good head start in helping their clients, where some other providers might be a little bit behind on that and can't offer that level of service.
Cool. Well, Jim, I know it's been a long day. You've talked to a lot of people today. I appreciate you taking the time to spend with me today. I'm going to be a little bit unfair and ask you to exercise your brain a little bit more. And your team moves so quickly, adding new features. You've just announced CaseBot. Anything exciting we can look for in the coming weeks that we can get together and talk about again soon?
Yes. We're very excited, and we should definitely get together and talk very soon.
Fantastic. Well, we'll look forward to that. Thanks again, Jim.
All right, thanks for having me.